Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, May 10th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 113 days, the game against Michigan in 204 days. When the Buckeyes take the field against Akron in 113 days, they're going to have a new first game starter. Could be a guy who started the Cotton Bowl and briefly played in the Cotton Bowl for them. Otherwise, it's going to be someone who is brand new to starting at quarterback for Ohio State. So who is that going to be? And what are some other questions we need to get answered by our smart football friend, Ross Fulton? Well, we're going to get them all answered today on today's show with Ross Fulton, our X's and O's guru at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And of course, when we have Ross on the show, we are proudly sponsored by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse, proudly offering nationally acclaimed USDA prime steaks, seafood and sushi, impeccable service, live entertainment, and an attention to detail that is simply unmatched. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus for more information, to check out the menu, and make a reservation today. All right, Ross is my guest today. It feels like everyone sort of has their own view of who's going to be the starting quarterback for Ohio State. They've got 5 guys on the roster with the transfer portal window now closed, so they should be entering the season with 5 guys. I feel like I think I know who the starter is going to be, but on our board, our Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse, anytime anyone asks Ross, who's the starting quarterback going to be, Ross, you always have a very definitive answer, so let people know who it's going to be and why you are so confident that you're right about
that. Famous last words. I am pretty confident that it's going to be Will Howard. I guess for a multitude of reasons. People are sort of underselling the experience difference. Like, we're talking about someone who has started a Big 12 championship game. He started, had double-digit starts. Versus people who have barely played at all. I thought that the spring game reiterated for me the reasons that I thought Will Howard would be the starter. I mean, he's a big, strong, fast kid. I thought he made pretty decisive decisions in the pocket, got the ball out. I think he is the best runner of the group. And so to the extent that it seems like Ryan Day keeps hammering the point that they want to reintroduce, shall we say, the quarterback run threat as a part of the running offense. I think he most fits that bill. I guess you can go both ways with Devin Brown's lack of experience and say, well, maybe we haven't seen something yet. But not to be harsh, the limited things I have seen, I have not been very comfortable with. In the regular season when he got chances, I thought he was pretty inaccurate. I did not think he had the mobility that the coaching staff seemed to sell him as. During the Cotton Bowl, before he got hurt, he made a variety of poor reads. And then I thought during the spring game, he was, again, pretty indecisive. Like, there were multiple times he scrambled when there were opportunities there to throw the football after holding it a long time, which I think would have perhaps been sacks in a real game. So I just think, I guess my thought is, it's like what an obvious level, right? It's like they brought in a guy who had started multiple seasons, who had 1 year left, who could have gone to the NFL. I guess, opinions may vary. He said what his grade was, maybe that's true, maybe that's not, versus guys who just haven't have any experience. So all that added up for me, and the way they continue to talk about the offense fits what he does well. So that's just why that's what some of circumstantial evidence I think makes me pretty confident that it's Will Howard.
So whether or not Will Howard is the starter this fall, I think the quarterback who got talked about this spring the most was Julian Sayin, true freshman who was at Alabama for about the time it takes to eat maybe a leisurely brunch, and then hopped back in the portal and headed to Ohio State. He certainly showed flashes this spring. I think, to me, with as much talent and veteran depth as they have all around the roster, this is probably not the year you're going to start a true freshman almost regardless. Is there a scenario, though, in your mind where maybe Julian Sayin ends up in the 2 deep this season, or is that just a year too early to be having that conversation?
Yeah, I think if Devin Brown had transferred, I could see the argument for that. I think if push comes to shove, again, just based on what I've seen, very limited amounts, I think that if they had to choose between playing Julian Sand and Lincoln Keenholz right now, I think they might go with Julian Sand. But I just think with Devin Brown there, like all I just said about his lack of experience, he has a lot more experience and reps than other people have had. So again, I guess, there's always one of those things like, are you talking about short-term fix if you had to versus a longer-term issue? So I do think it's premature. I mean, in my opinion, I think has the pole position to start in 2025. But I think, for reasons both involving just a true freshman, otherwise on an otherwise experienced team, as well as roster management, I think, if you make Julian Sand, if you announce he was the second string, you're potentially, maybe not for this fall, but for the winter, could be losing several quarterbacks. So I don't think they would come out and say that, but I do agree with the assessment that he really positioned himself well for the future.
So when you look at this year's Ohio State team, I think you look around the roster, around the different position groups, and there's an awful lot to be encouraged about, and an awful lot for Ohio State fans to be excited about. That's the easy part of this conversation, and we can, kind of go around and go, look at the running backs. Oh boy, look at the wide receivers. Let's take the opposite approach. I don't know that there are massive concerns on this team the way there maybe were a year ago, but what are the areas of concern for you on the offense? I mean, quarterback is, I guess, not entirely settled. You'd love to have another year of CJ Stroud somehow, but they don't. Other than that, offensive line is that last sort of unsettled spot on the offensive line a real concern to you? What are the concerns right now for the offense for the Buckeyes this year?
Yeah, I wouldn't say massive, but I have a substantial concern about the tight end position. I don't think it's been very well. I shouldn't say that. The blocking has left something to be desired from the position for a while now, and they've said the right things about G. Scott's development and play this spring. Maybe he gets there. I've not seen anything from the past from him that would indicate that he's going to improve the blocking. Will Kazmira came in. It does not seem like, on the one hand, there's been some positive rumblings about his blocking, but it didn't seem like he'd jumped to the front of the line either. So tight end is definitely, and like Jelani Thurman, when he got opportunities in the Cotton Bowl, again, true freshman. So, he did not seem to know his assignments. And so that pretty quickly ended that opportunity, at least in that game. And so obviously could have improved, still not seeing him at the front of the line. So that would definitely be my biggest concern. I could personally care less if the tight end caught a single ball this year, if they could just get competent run blocking from the position. They have plenty of other people that are, more effective with the ball in their hands once they catch it. So that would be my number one. Number two is right guard. I know there's a lot of chatter this offseason wanting to be able to bump Josh Fryer to right guard. I thought I don't think, just having listened to Ryan Day and others this spring, I don't think they really felt that way. Maybe if someone jumped out at them, they'd be fine with that because they see Josh Fryer as one of their best 5 starters. But I thought he was pretty good overall last year for being a first-time starter. I know people have bad visions of the Cotton Bowl in their brains, but that whole offensive line situation was such a mess with having a new center, not doing line calls. So people were not, it was just kind of a mess of from the get-go, less on pure ability. And so to me, Josh Fryer, I thought for the most part last season outplayed, for instance, Michigan's offensive tackles. And they obviously were just fine with those guys. So I think he's fine at right tackle. I do think right guard's a concern. Obviously, their hope, it seemed was that Luke Montgomery could grab that spot, and came out of spring seemed very much like that's not the case. I'm sort of in the boat at this point that I think Carson Hinsman's probably the best option there. If you play Hinsman at guard, how a lot of starts among that offensive line. But that is changing positions. But I think those are the two big unknowns to me. I know we're focused on offense right now, but I would probably put Will linebacker number 3. And then I agree there's a pretty significant drop off and concerns from there.
Oh, settle down, settle down. We'll get to the defense in the show next week. Let's not rush ourselves. I did want to ask you, coming out of the spring, I think it felt like, compared to a year ago, where there was not exactly outright panic about the offensive line, but about as vocal a level of concern as you ever hear from Ohio State's coaches about the offensive line coming out of spring ball 2023. This year, it feels like they're light years ahead of that. And now, that being said, it did feel like maybe they were kind of leaving the door open to, if there's the right fit in the portal, maybe you bring someone in. It feels like there is not the right fit in the portal, at least on the offensive line. So that's probably not going to be a solution. So is the offensive line as presently comprised? So let's say it's McLaughlin at center and Hinsman at right guard and Fryer at right tackle, and then you've got Simmons and of course Donovan Jackson on the left side. Is that five guys, or whoever else ends up getting swapped in for one of those guys, is that a good enough group to win a national championship this year? Because that feels like that's sort of where the bar is set in Columbus right now.
I think it is. I mean, as I said, I need to see a little bit more how things gel at right guard. But I think that the offensive line, first of all, I thought actually took more flack than deserved at times last season. I thought that they were pretty good in pass protection. I think the run game issues, as we've discussed, stem from much more systemic or structural problems than just simply like the left guard missed his block kind of things. So I think that the offensive line is going to be significantly helped this year by the, as we said, reintroduction of the quarterback run threat, which accounts for numbers, makes the defense less sure where the ball is going based on alignment. As we discussed with Chip Kelly, I think in his UCLA iteration did a really good job of threatening both sides of the center despite being in the gun. And so by that, I mean equally willing to run the football to the side that the halfback is lined up on as opposite it. I think that's been a problem in the past for Ohio State. Especially without a quarterback run threat, because at least with the read element, ball can come out either way. But if you're running, even in the spring game, we saw zone, same side zone. So again, running zone play to the side the halfback's on. We saw same side down G, which is just the guard to that play side is pulling and kicking out. So it's kind of a quicker hitting power. And so again, I think, at UCLA, he would run a lot of same side buck sweep, but same side outside zone, same side power. So all that's to say, I think the offensive line is going to be helped by those elements. In addition to adding Quinshon Judkins, who it really adds a very hard-nosed running element and will get you, turn 3 into 5 and 5 into 7, et cetera. So that, keeps just staying ahead of schedule makes a big difference in helping out.
All right, there you go. You heard it here first. Ohio State football, possibly kind of good this fall. Ross, thank you for joining us and laying some of the stuff out on the offense, good, bad, and a little bit of stuff that's still up in the air. Definitely going to be an interesting summer and fall heading into the season. Cannot wait. There are a lot of stuff to talk about around this team with the team, with recruiting, with the X's and O's, all that good stuff, and a great place to talk about all of that is at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Ross and our whole team of X's and O's gurus are on our board all the time, making you a smarter football fan. We got Mark covering recruiting, Mark and Kevin still in the middle of their big Southern swing trip, and Kevin, Tony, and I, of course, covering the team. That is all at BuckeyeHuddle.com, and of course, thanks again to our friends at Jeff Ruby Steakhouse, the award-winning upscale steakhouse in downtown Columbus, named one of the top 50 steakhouses in America by Food Network. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus, check out the menu, and make a reservation today. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.